Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Because of the work of our veterans, our nation remains the world's strongest force for peace and freedom, for democracy and prosperity. Today and on Veterans Day, our grateful nation is united to honor America's veterans. I am Michelle Morgan, Director of Senior Services, and on behalf of Mayor McCormick and the Department of Senior Services, specifically the Division of Senior Centers, with Supervisors Cynthia Ruzich, Coordinators Danielle Balint, Elizabeth Cowan, Hank Heidacker, Brianne Ludlow, Mary Lynn Passero, and Bhumika Patel, we welcome you to this magnificent day of honor and remembrance. We welcome you, all the men and women who have served in the United States Armed Services. At this time, I welcome everyone to join in showing loyalty to our nation in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Maple Tree Senior Center Coordinator Hank Heidacker, followed by veteran Carl Fabio, who will sing God Bless America, and the Star Spangled Banner by our entertainer Karen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. We always love when Carl sings that.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I would like to begin with, please take a seat, thank you. On the walls, you're going to see to my left and to my right, there are cards from Ross Street School, as well as from St. John Vianney for the veterans. I would like to begin with the message from Distinguished Leader of Veterans Alliance, Commander John Eberhardt, who is not able to attend today. He asked that I pass on to the troops the following message. To all veterans, God bless you. For all you have done and sacrificed, we are a true band of brothers. To us Vietnam veterans, finally, welcome home. And to our Woodbridge community, thank you for supporting and thinking of us. I am deeply honored and humbled to be with Heroes of Americans to show gratitude. This weekend is Veterans Day, and America will pause to honor those who have served in the military. November 11th is dedicated to American veterans of all wars. On this day, we offer a prayer for peace and a tribute to those who defend it. Today, Woodbridge Township is proud to honor and remember all those who have served in the United States Armed Services. We are grateful to all of you for your courage, strength, and dedication to safeguard our security and our ideals. On the hillside of honor and respect, we humbly thank you for answering the call to duty, for what you did in times of crisis and war, and what you did to preserve peace. Thank you for putting your life on hold to serve our country, and for the sacrifices you made being away from your family. Thank you for your valor, for protecting us, and for defending our rights. Let us remain ever grateful for all you have done, and for what we owe you, let us never forget. If we remember all of that, we can secure our future. To the caregivers and widows and widowers, you are admired for your love and care and for your sacrifices. At this time, I would like to invite Mayor McCormick. He is the pinnacle of Woodbridge Township. He is going to hand out the proclamations. I'm going to ask that all veterans remain seated. Our coordinators will then bring the proclamations to you. Those gifts are a gift from us, and enjoy. Mayor McCormick.
I can't start until Garrett sits down over here. Come on, Garrett.
Thank you.
Good morning. I first want to thank John Eberhard for those great words. I can't possibly say anything better than he just said it. I want to thank him because one of the very first things we did upon taking office way back a while ago is restart the Veterans Alliance and ask John Eberhard to run it. And one of the first things he did is reinstate the Veterans Parade in 2007, which is something we hadn't had for many, many years before that. The parade is this Sunday, November, 12th. Thank you. I'm not that good with numbers. And it kicks off at 1:30 sharp from right in front of Ross Street School, goes out to Route 35, makes a left, goes to the corner where the new eyeglass place is, St. James, Knights of Columbus, and the bank, and makes a left and goes right down the middle of Main Street, USA, till the end. And then there's a reception at the Woodbridge American Legion afterwards. So we're looking very much forward to that, and I hope all of you are there. So let me also thank the crew that put today together. That's our Department of Senior Services. Michelle mentioned all the names, but I think each one deserves to be mentioned again. These ladies and one guy behind me, my friend Hank, they run our senior centers, and they're just wonderful facilities. Most towns around us are lucky if they have one. We have 6. We're a big town. There's something always going on in these centers, and everybody, this whole group right here, consolidated their efforts to make sure today was a success. So let me start with Michelle Morgan, who runs the Department of Senior Services. Let's hear from Michelle. Her assistant, Renee Santos. We also, the head of the senior centers, his assistant is Cynthia Ruzich. And we have the 6 coordinators. Behind me is my good friend Hank, who runs Maple Tree. Mary Lynn runs 5 branches. And 5 branches, if you notice, the names we give are all tree related, but 5 branches, because it was in the American Legion building, it was actually John Mitch's idea as we kicked around, what do you call these things? We have sycamore, we have hickory, all these tree things. John said, well, call it 5 branches because it means both. It's got a tree theme and it's got a military theme, and it still is the American Legion, so I thought that was a great idea. Brianne Ludlow from Evergreen. Liz Cowan from Hickory. Danielle Belinch from Sycamore. Bhumika Patel from Oak Tree. Erin Zerpolo, who kind of roams around and covers everybody when they're out. In the back, we have Joanne Polakowski, who is the assistant at Evergreen. I want to thank the official bagpiper of Woodbridge Township, Mr. Paul DeLeo. We had a bunch of guys from our maintenance staff. We also have our TV 35 cameraman, Emil Brandaffi. Our communications director who helps and gets all these events organized, John Haggerty. From the mayor's office taking pictures and nothing happens until she posts it on Facebook, Kelly Walsh. And of course, the stars of the show who are right to my right, the veterans of Woodbridge Township. So this we wanted to make...
Before you get into the proclamation, Paulie's going to do the military hymn.
Oh, all right, that's a great idea. Let's hear from our official bagpiper doing the military medley.
It's Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marine. You're a branch, you feel like standing up, be recognized. I'm already standing. I turned batteries on first.
Thank you, Paul DeLeo. I ask you also to keep in your thoughts and prayers who I think is the oldest living veteran in Woodbridge Township. He's 98, Stu Brandow, who would be standing, I think, 3 different times. He was Army, I think he was Air Force, and somehow, well, who's the oldest? Phil. Oh, Phil. Oh, Phil's 100. Right, Phil Sabota. Anybody else older than 98? So it's Phil Sabota and then Stu Brandow. Wow. Congratulations, Phil. Thank you. I would also ask you to keep in your thoughts and prayers the thousands of men and women out doing now in the 2020s what you all did in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, which is proudly and bravely defend our country, and they're in harm's way as you were, and they deserve our support now. It's a shame what's going on in the world, but it's a good thing we have men and women now with the same bravery and heroism that you showed many, many years ago. So let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. All right, now I'm going to read the names, the branch of the service, and the years, and the ladies here are going to each take one at a time. So when I call your name, just raise your hand, and they will present you. So first up, Vietnam War, William Alberts, U.S. Army, E4, 1963 to 1967. Lou Algaze, U.S. Navy, Vietnam, E4, 1968-1970. I know Lou's here. Vietnam, William Anthony, U.S. Marine Corps, Sergeant E5, 64 to 68. William Antonucci, U.S. Army Specialist Force, 71 to 72, Vietnam. Bill Anzella, U.S. Army Specialist Force, 60 to 61. Frank Bartolotti, Korea, U.S. Navy, TM-1 Torpedo Man First Class, 52 to 56. Vietnam, Joel Bendar, U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant, 69 to 73. Bernie Berg, U.S. Army Reserve, SP5, 57 to 63. Vietnam, Gene Bernhardt, U.S. Navy, PO3, 68 to 74. William Bovaird, U.S. Army, PFC, 55 to 58. Vietnam, Nelson Caro, U.S. Marine Corps Corporal, 65 to 69. Vietnam, Raymond Chesley, U.S. Coast Guard, EN3, 70 to 74. Vietnam, Robert Cristiano, U.S. Army, E4, 63 to 65. Korea, Frederick Clayton, U.S. Army, PFC, 1951 to 53. Vietnam, George D'Addario Jr., U.S. Army Specialist Force, 68 to 70. Vietnam, Paul DiPaolo, U.S. Army SP4, 62 to 69. Dan DeSanto, U.S. Army Specialist 4th Class, 57 to 59. Vietnam, Lester Dietz, U.S. Army E4, 65 to 67. Up, bring it to his wife. Vietnam, James Eddington, U.S. Army Spec 4, 67 to 70. Joe Elliott, U.S. Air Force, Vietnam, Sergeant E4, 69 to 73. Henry Endres, U.S. Army Corporal, 57 to 64. I can handle this one. Korean conflict, Carl Fabio, U.S. Army Sergeant, 53 to 55. There you go, buddy. Vietnam, Steve Fedorchak, U.S. Army Spec 5, 71 to 75. Adolf Florzak, U.S. Navy, Vietnam, 2nd Class Petty Officer, 59 to 62. World War II, Morris Gelber, U.S. Navy, Aviation Electronics Tech, 3rd Class, 45 to 46. David Blovan, U.S. Army Specialist Force, 76 to 79. Vietnam, Joseph Gornix, U.S. Army SP4, 68 to 70. Vietnam, Steve Gubernat, U.S. Army Sergeant First Class, 65 to 69 and 83 to 2003. Korea, George Hapstack, U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant, 51 to 54. Ayakovos, Jack Ayakovu, U.S. Army Specialist 5, 64 to 66. Nick Ionito, U.S. Marine Corps Corporal, 56 to 59. Vietnam, Walter Kazmarek, U.S. Marine Corps Corporal, 67 to 69. World War II, Greg Kalarakis, U.S. Army PFC, 43 to 46. Korea, Ray Krapaitis, U.S. Army PE2, 55 to 60. William Kutcher, U.S. Navy CTR-1, 63 to 67. Walter Kuzma Jr., U.S. Army Staff Sergeant, 1963 to 70. Frederick Link, U.S. Air Force E3, 59 to 63. Ron Lisko, U.S. Army PFC E3, 63 to 67. Vietnam, Tim Mannion, U.S. Navy YN2, 75 to 79. Michael Milia, U.S. Army Sergeant, 66 to 69. Phil Messina, U.S. Army First Lieutenant, 1944 to 1952. Right there in the middle there. John Mikulak, U.S. Navy, CW 04, 62 to 93. Lebanon, Anthony Morello Jr., U.S. Army Private, 1956 to 59. Korea, Tony Moskwa, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 55 to 61. Vietnam, Andrew Mudrak, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 69 to 71. Korea, Juan Muniz, U.S. Army Private, 51 to 53. Vietnam, Dan Naroda, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 65 to 67. Vietnam, Charlie Ogelfingal, U.S. Army Specialist 5th Class, 64 to 67. Vietnam, Ramon Ray Oris, U.S. Navy, AMH 3, 63 to 66. Korean War, Anthony Payon, U.S. Army Corporal, 52 to 54. Vietnam, Charles Paul, U.S. Coast Guard, SN 3, 65 to 71. Eston Pourbaugh, U.S. Air Force, SRG E4, 1974 to 78. Cold War, Herman Renkovins, U.S. Air Force A1C, 55 to 58. Lester Ricardo, U.S. Army PFC, 1957-59. Dave Rickard, U.S. Army SP4, 59 to 62. Vietnam, Johnny Rodriguez, U.S. Army E4, 66 to 68. Vietnam, Leo Rose, U.S. Army SRG E5, 70 to 74. Vietnam, Peter Witkowski, U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant, 64 to 68. Vietnam, Andy Sariski, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 64 to 70. Vietnam, Frank Scarangello, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 67 to 69. Vietnam, John Stalowski, U.S. Navy E4, 64 to 68. Korea, Garrett Suffin, U.S. Navy Engineer, 54 to 60. World War II, Phil Svoboda, U.S. Army Air Corps, PFC, 43 to 46. John Taraska, U.S. Navy, 54 to 57. Vietnam, Francisco Torres, U.S. Army Private, 68 to 70. Vietnam, Manuel Valles, U.S. Navy E4, 66 to 68. Vietnam, Joseph Van Nest, U.S. Navy 3rd Class Petty Officer, 58 to 62. World War II, Anthony Varaza, U.S. Army Corporal, 45 to 46. Stan Wardensky, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 70 to 72. Henry Wirt, U.S. Navy Seaman, 52 to 56. Joseph Williams, Vietnam, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 65 to 69. Vietnam, Bill Wisk, U.S. Army Specialist 4, 65 to 67. Vietnam, Gus Winneck, U.S. Army National Guard Specialist 5, 64 to 68. Vietnam, Martin Zach, U.S. Navy 3rd Class Petty Officer, 64 to 68. Vietnam, Razor Polo, U.S. Air Force Captain, 67 to 71. You can do that one. And Vietnam, Theodore Eben, U.S. Navy Cryptologic Technician, PO2, 60 to 63. Now, did anybody not get called?
Mayor? Ray Orris would like to come up and address.
Oh, okay. Everybody good? Everybody got something? Okay. What? Did I say Gagliotti? We'll talk to you later. We don't have it. We don't have it. Okay, now I'd like to call up Ray Orris, the commander of Post 471 in Island, if he would say a few words on behalf of all the veterans here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't get a chance to check the newspaper. Did you win yesterday?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say welcome home. My brothers and sisters, that term has been used for hundreds of years, welcoming home people that have traveled, that have fought for their nations. But for the Vietnam veterans, I wish you welcome home, brothers and sisters. So many of you know that the Vietnam veterans were not welcomed home at all. It took them many, many years to be acknowledged. We were told to take our uniforms off when we were discharged and to go out and to try to hide and not display the fact that we were proud veterans. And it's taken many, many years. And I know when I come to these things, my wife always tells me to stand up straight. But when I'm with you, brothers and sisters, I always stand up straight. You help me stand up straight. And so I can only say, welcome home.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Brianne, Mary Lynn, Liz, Aaron, Cynthia, Bamika, and Hank.
At this time, I would like to ask that you all stay here because we would like to take a group photo and then we will break bread together. Thank you again for your bravery and service.